Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into something absolutely massive. We're going on a global journey to track down the top 10 countries with the most million population cities. So if you've ever wondered where the true epicenters of human urbanization are actually located, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's just get right into this massive global countdown.
But first, picture a spinning globe in your mind for just a second. I've got to ask you a question right off the bat. Which country do you think has the absolute highest number of cities with a population of over 1 million people? Go ahead, take a guess. Got it? Okay, keep that country in the back of your mind as we start our descent, counting down from rank number 10 all the way down to the ultimate number 1.
Okay, part 1. Defining a million city. Let's set some ground rules.
So before we get to the numbers, we really need to nail down our core definition. What exactly is a million city? Well, simply put, it's a city with a population that exceeds 1 million residents. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? A million people, one place. But when you actually start counting people on a global scale and comparing entirely different countries, the lines can actually get a little bit blurry. And that's where the methodology becomes incredibly important.
For instance, if you look at data sets from the UN or Demographia, you might notice the numbers occasionally bounce around a bit. The big catch here is that countries define their city boundaries completely differently. Some measure by the city proper, which is, the strict administrative legal boundary of the municipality, but others measure by the metropolitan area, and that includes the surrounding urban sprawl, the suburbs, the commuter belts, basically where people actually live and work. So to keep this explainer factual and consistent, we're relying on the metropolitan or urban agglomeration definitions. It's really the only way to understand the true functional scale of these massive urban landscapes.
Moving on to part 2, the global urban titans. Let's get into the countdown.
We're grouping these lower ranks together to keep the momentum going, looking at ranks 10 down to 4. And we're seeing incredible urban giants like Mexico, Japan, and Russia making massive waves here. But kicking off our list right at number 10 is the United States. The US boasts over 40 metropolitan areas that actually surpass that 1 million mark. Historically, the economies in these nations have driven huge populations toward very specific urban centers. In the US, for example, it was early industrialization and then that massive post-war boom that created clustered hubs. Think New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Now, these nations alone represent hundreds of millions of urban residents, which is staggering. But as massive as they are, they're literally just the beginning of our list.
All right, part 3, the top 3 ranks. This is where things get truly wild.
Taking the bronze medal at our number 3 spot is Brazil.
When we look at Brazil's total million-plus cities, the population data tells this absolutely incredible story of rapid development. Brazil has around 17 cities with populations exceeding 1 million people, and we aren't just talking about the world-famous hubs like São Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. We're also talking about massive urban centers like Belo Horizonte and Fortaleza. So why did so many large cities spring up here? Well, it really comes down to their specific economic drivers during the mid-20th century. Heavy regional industrialization essentially pulled millions of people from the more rural northeast directly into the rapidly expanding urban skylines of the southeast. The sheer density of Brazil's largest cities today is a direct testament to that fast-paced economic gravity and that massive rural-to-urban migration.
Coming in as our massive runner-up at the number 2 position is India.
India's staggering population statistics completely redefine what scale even means. We are looking at a nationwide urbanization force with roughly over 45 urban agglomerations surpassing the 1 million mark. Cities like Mumbai and Delhi, well, they're globally recognized megacities with tens of millions of residents. But you also have absolute economic powerhouses like Bangalore, Calcutta, and Chennai. The engines driving India's city growth are transforming the entire country at lightning speed. Literally millions of people are migrating to these megacities to tap into new economic sectors. They're moving away from traditional agriculture and diving headfirst into a booming IT, services, and manufacturing economy. And this creates these incredibly dense, vibrant, and rapidly expanding urban networks that are growing, for the most part, completely organically.
Which finally brings us to the undisputed, absolute number 1 global titan for million population cities, China. Honestly, the sheer scale of China's urbanization is just unmatched anywhere else on the globe. We're talking about a staggering number of million-plus cities, well over 100. And actually, some metrics push that number past 150, depending on exactly how those urban boundaries are drawn. Beyond the renowned capitals like Beijing and Shanghai, you have incredible stories, like Shenzhen. Shenzhen literally transformed from a modest fishing village into a technological megacity of over 12 million people in just a few decades. It's mind-blowing. You also have massive inland hubs like Chongqing and Chengdu. These powerful economic engines, driven by manufacturing, tech, and unprecedented special economic zones, have systematically fueled this city growth. It is an urbanization strategy executed on the largest scale in human history, heavily fueled by aggressive, top-down state infrastructure planning.
Let's move to part 4. China versus India. A direct comparison.
When we put these two giants head-to-head, we actually see fundamentally different models of development. I mean, yes, both have immense populations, but their urbanization and economic strategies have shaped their landscapes in completely unique ways. In China, you see this aggressive, top-down infrastructure and state-driven city planning. The government is building the high-speed rail, the highways, the massive housing districts, often before the population even fully arrives. It's wild. But in contrast, India experiences explosive, largely organic urban migration. People are moving to the cities driven by a huge shift from agriculture to services and industry, and the infrastructure there often has to scramble just to catch up with the sheer volume of people arriving. Their respective economies are entirely shaped by how they manage these millions of new urban residents every single year.
And just to really wrap our heads around their true dominance, think about how China and India account for a staggering share of all the cities on this top 10 list combined. Together, they hold an overwhelming majority of the world's million-plus cities. The demographic weight of the entire world is heavily tilted toward Asia, and the sheer volume of humanity concentrated in just these two nations makes that reality impossible to ignore. They aren't just participating in the global economy anymore, their urban centers are essentially anchoring it.
And finally, part 5, future urban growth trends. Where do we go from here?
So the overarching trend in global urban growth shows us that the migration to cities is far from over, not even close. The next wave of million population cities is already forming, but the geography, it's shifting. Experts project that over the next few decades, the most explosive urban growth is actually going to happen in emerging economies across Africa and Southeast Asia. Cities like Lagos in Nigeria or Jakarta in Indonesia, they are expanding at just breathtaking rates. As economies continue to develop and rural populations seek out greater opportunities, the boundaries of metropolitan areas are just going to keep expanding. Understanding this trend really gives us a clear picture of how our world map will continue to evolve, because it's going to demand entirely new infrastructure, new economic policies, and honestly, new ways of living together.
And that, folks, brings us to the end of our global countdown. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really think about. Which country's ranking surprised you the most today? Was it the US sitting at number 10, or maybe the sheer undeniable scale of Brazil, India, or China? Think about how these massive urban centers are going to shape our future global economy, our climate, and our way of life. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.